Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Shoba has a natural talent for engaging and inspiring audiences. Today, as usual, she's going to bring a level of energy and enthusiasm to the room. Please help me welcome our first speaker, Shoba Rao.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm going to talk about public speaking skills. Well, who wouldn't? It's a Toastmasters Club, and we are all here to improve our public speaking skills. But what is really public speaking skills? And how are we improving it day by day? This particular speech, before I even start to give that speech, I just want to let you know, assume the audience are actually women who are going to get back to work. Public speaking skills was originally meant as speaking to a live audience, or it's like an oration. It's mostly meant for orators, and that's the way it started. But nowadays, public speaking skills have become a critical form of skill, especially as part of a soft skill that you can use at your workplace or at home, wherever you want to, with a really small audience. Especially the more we move to online, the more it becomes very critical. At home, maybe it may not work with your husband, who generally tend to have selective hearing, as we all know. Now, why? Why do you need these skills? A LinkedIn survey recently showed that 57% of business leaders consider these interpersonal soft skills, so-called life skills for leadership, communication, speaking, presentation, all this to be more important than technical skills. So you can be technically very good, but if you're not able to communicate to others in your team or your peers or to your bosses, then it's not really going to help you much. And that's why it is very, very critical. Now, I said, yes, the survey shows that, but then once again, let's dive deep into why it is so critical having these public speaking skills. The number one thing is when you communicate information which is clear and concise, it gets to people, it gets to the audience. And let's say you are at work presenting to a set of people, and when you present with clarity, and you have like a succinct message along with it, then it actually helps you to win further promotions and further leadership roles at work. And when you do that, it actually elevates you to the next level where you can gain buy-in even with customers or vendors or whoever you're speaking to. You go to the next level. And it doesn't stop there. Actually, you work with your colleagues and you develop a rapport. More than just talking to your bosses or your peers with a one-on-one interaction, it is about the water cooler talks. And for you to build a rapport with everyone around you, these skills matter. And the surveys have always shown that people who develop a rapport with their superiors with their peers tend to get promoted more. It is not just about the skills or your technical skills or the skills required for your job. It is a lot more than that. So all this put together, it helps you to advance in your career a lot easier and a lot faster than ideally it would. And that's why these soft skills are very important. Now, what are these skills that I'm talking about? Clear articulation, as I said at the very beginning. When Apple was developing their iPhone, Steve Jobs was very frustrated at the team and the way they were doing. So he went to the whiteboard and clearly drew the phone with just those 3 or 4 buttons that he wanted and stopped there. And he said, this is what I'm looking for. Very concise, very clear. And this is the aesthetic that we want. And he also, of course, had the authority. And that got Apple to where it is today with all the iPhones that we have seen so far. So you need that. Number one, you need to have a very clear vision and a very clear way of articulating it to the team. And when you're presenting, you have to engage your team. And how do you engage the team? Like the way I am presenting right now to you, you can see my hands are moving in this direction. It goes like this. The body language is very critical when you're presenting to your team. You can present very well. You can have a clear message. You can have an engaging presentation style. But if you don't understand your audience, everything goes moot. You cannot be presenting to a team which is, say, is developing iPhone and talk about an Apple MacBook or whatever you're doing in a MacBook Pro, because that's not what that team is looking for. So you need to be very clear about the audience. That is rule number one, know your audience. But how? How do you do that? First and foremost, you have to do an audience assessment. Find out the expectations of the audience. What is it that they are interested in? Today, the way I am giving this speech, my audience is my club members, and I know they are interested in public speaking skills. And so it helps for them. And so I have assessed my audience well. And the audience size, I know it's going to be somewhere between 20 and 30. If it is a live audience and I'm speaking in a bigger auditorium with 500 people, I may not want to show presentations. I might just give a speech, a keynote speech where I'm standing near a lectern, maybe walking around and giving a speech. This is online. So I'm standing in this location and giving this speech with a presentation. And I need to know who I am speaking to and be aware of exactly what the situation is. But more than anything, I have to be authentic. I need to know what I'm speaking about. I need to understand what you want. And based on that, if I am authentic enough and I can get my message across, that's what matters most in any type of public speaking. Now, how do you do it? Number one, we have to control any type of anxiety that you might feel. Most of us have performance anxiety. It is not easy for anyone to come on stage and talk to an audience. When I say this is not just about a live audience. It is even if you go for an interview, let's say you have a panel of people who are interviewing you, 3 or 4 people, you need to control the performance anxiety because you should be confident enough that you know the subject. And then how do you portray your skill more? You have to maintain eye contact with them. At least 60% of the time, you have to maintain eye contact with the audience. And again, this goes back to what I said previously. Assess what your audience needs. If it is a room of like 10 or 15 people, then you make eye contact with them. It's easy. But in a very huge audience, you may not be able to make eye contact with everybody. So assess it and accordingly make eye contact regularly. And organizing a speech, we all know, organizing a presentation, whatever you have to do, there has to be a flow. And I think everyone in this club definitely knows how to do that. Practice, 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 practice. If you're going to an interview, you have to prepare for the interview at least 2-3 weeks in advance. You might be an expert in that subject matter. It doesn't matter. You still have to practice. Figure out exactly how the questions could be. Find out which company you are interviewing for. Go ahead and find out all the products that they are looking into, or if it is HR, if it is marketing, figure out what it is that you want to do and practice, rehearse what you want to talk to them and revise everything. That is very key when you are presenting to someone. And as I said before, audience assessment is number one. Number two, essential is body language. And that's why I'm delving a little bit deeper into body language instead of just giving you the big picture. Can everyone stand up, please? Stand up, close your eyes, lift your arms up, and then just leave it and relax. There you go. Now you see your stand, when you're standing, your position is like this. This is the normal position you have your hands out when you are speaking. It might look very uncomfortable when you're standing like this with your palms out like this. But for the audience, generally, it tends to look comfortable. It tends to appease to them. That's the body language you have to use. Your palms are always out. You're talking like this. This is the body language that one has to use when you're talking. And in fact, let's say you're giving a presentation to a set of people and you want to show authority on your subject, you do this chop move. Like the way, if you see me most often when I speak, I go like this when you give your points. These are some of the key body languages to follow. Now you might be wondering, why do I have to use all these body language, force myself to use this body language when I know what I'm talking about? I am authentic and the audience will be able to receive what I'm saying. Where is the need for me to use these specific body languages? It's a cycle. Let's say you're not confident. Let's say you have performance anxiety. If you use these body language, it will automatically make you feel that you are confident. It will make you feel confident. It will slowly reboost you up. And the more you have confidence, the more you start using this body languages, inherently it comes to you. So that's the cycle there. So it's good to have these body language tips in your mind when you're giving your presentations. So I said, confidence. So if you have the body language, then the confidence automatically comes. And if you have confidence, your body language also follows it appropriately. Let me recount a story. I was interviewing for my first job at Texas Instruments in India. Texas Instruments, as some of you might know, it's a semiconductor company. I was out of college, my bachelor's. When I was interviewing, there were a panel of 3 people. And the question was about C programming. This was in 1995. So computers were there. We had some Intel processors, which were really, I don't know, some of you may not even know how those computers looked at that time. So I was an electronics engineer, so I did not know much about C programming. I knew a little bit. When they asked me that question, the job was not for a software programmer, but they just asked if I knew C programming. And they asked a particular question to ask me to code something. I did reasonably. And they went to the next level. I looked at them and said, give me a computer and give me 1 week and I will show you what I can do. This, when I was 20 years old, out of college, when I spoke to them at the interview. Did that show confidence? Maybe. I still think it was foolish of me to do something like that. But the interviewer till today, he remembers what I said that day and the confidence I showed in that interview. Though I do still really think it was very foolish of me for someone right straight out of college to say something like that to an interviewer. That's the confidence you need to have. You need to believe in yourself first, give positive affirmations to yourself, tell yourself that you can do it because you have practiced it enough, then it will automatically come to you. How do you boost your confidence further? You set goals for yourself, be it your life, be it a particular interview, or be it your job, whatever it is. If you set goals for yourself and you know you can achieve it, you are working towards it, then that helps your confidence boost. You cut the stress out of it. You de-stress yourself every day. Focus on your strengths as much as on your weakness to improve. Focus on your strength and keep affirming yourself. And remember, no negative language. And what do I mean by negative language? Let's take this scenario. In a meeting, I'm sitting there and my colleague, a man, is sitting next to me. Most often in all my meetings, I am the only woman present in that room. Whenever my boss says, "Oh, Shobha, that's a job well done," my immediate response is, "Oh, that's not a big deal. Anyone can do that. It's not a big deal." Whereas the same thing, if he says to my colleague, he always says, "Oh, thank you. I was able to do it within 2 days." It's simple. See the difference? I don't even acknowledge that I have done a good job. Whereas most men tend to acknowledge that they have done a good job. As women, we have what we call an imposter syndrome. We don't tend to acknowledge. What is an imposter syndrome? It is when you think that you are still not good enough, though you are actually doing great. And that comes from various things, because you tend to be a perfectionist. So you want everything to be aligned right before you even go out somewhere. Like if you are in this career fair today, you think you have to have all the skills necessary to get a job before you can even apply to a job. That's an imposter syndrome. That's looking for a perfectionist. Or sometimes people can be natural geniuses. So in that case, they tend to think everything comes easy, so it's not a big deal. But actually, it's a big deal. We need to acknowledge it. That's also an imposter syndrome. So this is within you, which you can fix to boost your confidence. But there are some other things in workplace. You can have a boss who is micromanaging. But remember, whenever somebody is micromanaging you, it's their insecurity. It is not yours. Fear of failure. This is a major cause for many people to not have confidence at work, to speak up. You need to transform that by actually going and grabbing at an opportunity, even if you think you might fail. Failure is the stepping stone for success. Remember, unless you go and do it, you're not going to gain that confidence. So there will always be workplace conflicts. There will always be micromanagement from your bosses. There will be so many things at work. You de-stress yourself, ensure you keep your confidence afloat. To do all this, I spoke about so many things with regards to confidence and how you have to get over imposter syndrome. But number one thing that I want to leave you with today is ask questions. Wherever you are, it could be an interview, it could be when you're presenting something, you could be listening to a lecture, you could be actually giving a speech, you could be anywhere. Ask questions. Never ever shy away from asking questions. Let me give you another example. When I was working in Texas Instruments, again, as I said, this was like way long before. I was very young at that time. I came an expat to Dallas from India. That was my first trip to the US. I really did not know anything about US. And I was in Dallas. I never used to wear, we always talk about dressing for success. So even when you're going for interview, you have to dress appropriately so that you are considered seriously. I used to wear Indian attire because that's the only attire I had, and that's all I used to care about. So when I came from India, I used to wear an Indian attire. I attended a lecture given by a professor from Georgia Tech. And I was sitting near the door, totally not confident about myself because it was a room full of men. I was the only woman. I was sitting near the door, and I was from India. I was not from here, from Dallas. I was listening to the lecture, but my interest in always knowing anything technical. And also I was always one of the students who goes, me. I felt that there's a little bit of strength, strong enough to speak up. I asked questions from all the way in the back of the room, near the door. Fast forward, in 2000, when I joined National Semiconductors, we had interns from Georgia Tech. I walk into my boss's cubicle, lo and behold, I see that professor. And the first thing he told me when he saw me, he said, "Hey, I know you. You were that smart girl who was in that room asking questions." That's what asking questions leads to you. You have to ask. It's not just about questions. If you want a promotion, ask. If you think you believe in yourself, you know you can do something better, go and talk to your boss. Ask, ask, ask. And that's what gets you to wherever you are. And for asking, for boosting your confidence to get you where you want to be, you need these soft skills, the public speaking skills that I'm talking about. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Shobha.